Oh, which means I have to share the screen. Okay, I'll get it. All right. All right, so when I last looked, only one person had submitted their map because they weren't sure if we were going to be working on it yet or not. I don't want to name names, but do you want to share it on screen? I think it's really nice. Okay. So what I'm going to do is actually share Sarah's map and make it full screen here. So you've seen a few other maps that were in the handout. So here's one that Sarah made. I think it looks really nice. She's got her points. She has her bounding box around it, really where you live. A nice formatted legend. And this is a complete map layout. And I don't think I specified that you needed a whole complete layout. So if you don't have one, don't stress about it. But it does look nice having the title and the legend and everything. I like the way the countries are nice and simple. Very fun, easy to see, point markers, little stars. Yeah, any comments, questions? How did you do that? Anything? All right. Do you have any comments on your own map?
It took me just a minute to figure out how I wanted to give the countries different colors, but not all of the others, because I decided I wanted to do only the countries that I've been in should be colored.
Yeah.
So it took me a minute to go through, and I actually have to go back through and remember how I did it.
Okay.
To separate those out and assign them each a separate color.
Okay. From
that list there, but it really wasn't too hard to do once I just started pushing buttons and saying, what happens when I push this button?
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of learning new software is kind of being given an overview, kind of being pointed in the right direction, and then just trying stuff out. Just trial and error, experiment, explore. Don't be afraid if you push a button and it messes something up.
I did have to close it without saving a few times because I'm I don't know what I've done.
And it's not working. Yeah. So make sure you save frequently, and then you can close it and open it back up again. There's usually an undo. If you're actually changing layers and modifying layers, you may want to consider making copies of layers before you actually edit anything. For how you made this, I don't know how you made this, but one guess might be you can select features and then save them as their own layer.
That is what I did.
Yeah. And then once they're their own layer, you could symbolize each unique value, which there would only be 3 as its own color. So it's a very similar process as to what we would do in ArcGIS Pro. Yeah, something like that, and it doesn't have to be quite as fancy with the legend and everything, but that's kind of what we're going for. So you have all been working on yours, hopefully, maybe. They are officially due tonight. Do you have any questions or comments on the maps that you've made? Would anyone like to share their map? You could just email it to me real quick. I could put it on screen. Put you on the spot, totally. Okay. Do you have any questions about in trying to make your own maps? Did you have any trouble? Did you hit any issues, any roadblocks, any things that you couldn't figure out how to do? Nope, everyone did great. Everyone's a QGIS expert. Okay. I'm going to hop into QGIS and I'll show you a few things that I had. This cracks me up right here. All right, so I'm going to go in and open QGIS, which was it on the N drive? Can't remember if it was on the N drive, but anyway, I'm on my office machine now. So there were a few things that I wanted to show you. I'm going to go back actually to our agenda. Here, a little bit about projections, symbology, and then 2 things for getting better layers into QGIS. So accessing additional base maps, adding feature and image services that are online into QGIS, because there's a ton of data out there. And you probably know how to get into ArcGIS Pro. Do you? How many of you know how to get a feature service from like ArcGIS Online into ArcGIS Pro? Oh, we can go over that too. But there's ways to get into QGIS too. And then I'll just really quickly show you layouts. All right, so when we were last here, hold on, let me turn off all this other junk here. When we were last here, we had some points, and this is, I messed up this map. I don't even know what's in here. This was my circle around my North America points, but of course it's not a circle because of projections. When you're making a map of the world, circles will not be circles. Or if you start out with a circle and then put it in a better projection, they're gonna get all warped. So really be careful when you have data for large areas. Try to run the data, run the tool in the projection it's meant to be used in. Okay, so let's say, what was first? What did I say was first? Oh yeah, projections. As we know, so each layer is stored in a projection. So if I actually go to this layer properties, I can see that this layer is actually stored in North America Albers equal area conic. But then the map itself can be drawn in any projection I want. And so in QGIS, we can see that from our project properties, CRS for coordinate reference system. And right now the map is drawing, it should be pseudo Mercator. Oh, here it is. The map is drawing as though it's in pseudo Mercator. So you have to balance what the layers are in and what the map should be drawn in. If you get too far out of whack, it might not be able to draw at all. So keep that in mind. I'm not really a huge fan of the ease of access for projections in QGIS. I feel like ArcGIS, it's a lot easier to find things. But once you get used to it, it becomes a little more familiar. What about symbology? So when you were making your maps, or as you are still making your maps actively right now, I can hear you clicking. What are some questions you have about styles and symbology? Did you stumble across any cool styles that you like? Do you want to share any of those? Do you have questions about how do I get this effect on my map? Riley?
Mine's really simple, but how do you like change the outline to be like dashed?
Yeah, so I'm going to use my ugly circle here, my ugly egg here. I'm going to right click and go to styles, and I'm going to go to edit symbol. So this is one of a couple ways to get into your styles. And my style right now is just a simple fill. And then you have a fill color and a stroke color. And then you have a stroke style. So for any line or the outline of a polygon, you can go to your stroke style and make it a dash. And then you can change other things, other properties in here as well, but I'm just gonna leave it at that, and then you can play around on your own. But if I hit okay, you can kind of see now that the outline is dashed. Or if you had just a straight up line, it would make it dashed. There are some really neat effects in here that you can do. One is you can change the color pretty easily, and then you have all your recent colors here. You can also play around with color in here. I'm going to go to simple, fill. I'm going to go to fill color. You have standard colors. You can choose a color. You can also get the hex notation. They call it HTML notation, but you can get the code for any color. And this is a standard notation. So if you see a color elsewhere, like color brewer, hold on, color brewer, colorbrewer2.org gives you like sample schemes, and see how they have these codes right here? You can actually copy and paste these. So if you find a color scheme elsewhere, you can paste it in. And that goes for ArcGIS Pro as well. So it's a really great, easy way to get the right colors if you see it somewhere else. Another thing you can do here, is the eyedropper. So maybe I really like this shade of yellow and I can make it that yellow. So you can go to anywhere on your screen and eyedrop it. So if you had a map on screen, like that you found online maybe, and you just had it open on your computer and you're like, oh, I really like the way those blues and yellows and oranges go together, you could eyedrop it and make it yourself. And again, that's the same that works for ArcGIS Pro as well. In here, once you dig in, by the way, you can also play with your opacity, which is transparency. And then you can make it opaque or, you know, semi-transparent. Other questions about symbology? I'm going to turn on my countries here. Did we look at this, how to make each country its own color? And you might not want to make each country its own color. That's kind of a lot, but you might have other types of layers that you want to make its own color. Like in Sarah's map, she selected out only the 3 countries, and so it was really simple. But you can go to properties of your layer. So right click, go to properties. Oh, wrong layer there, whoops. Right click on the correct layer, which is my countries, properties. And look under here, you have a category for symbology. And right now you almost can't even see it. It's like way at the top, but right here, just like in ArcGIS Pro, we have single symbol, categorized, graduated, rule-based, and inverted. I have never actually played with those. Maybe that can be my thing to play with tonight, but it's not going to happen now. So let's say categorized. If you have codes, names, land cover types, state names, things like that, that would be categories. You can say what column or what field in the table contain your categories. I don't know, I'll do sovereignty. And then what color scheme do you want? Spectral. And then you have to add all of them, which I don't know, classify. Oh, yuck. Okay, so this is what happens when you have too many things. It's going to look pretty weird in here. But if you had fewer categories, it would look a little bit better. But I hit classify at the bottom, and I threw all of the different countries in there. And then when I hit OK, I have rainbow map. So that's your unique values. I don't know that I have a numeric field. But if you had a numeric field, then you can do graduated. Label rank. Like population would be a really good one. I don't know, GDP. Oh, population. We have population right here. This is the country data from Natural Earth. So I'm just like looking at whatever it was, and I didn't really study the data first. But population, legend, you can play around with your legend format, decimal places and whatnot. I'm going to keep it as spectrum, and I'll do Viridis. Ooh, Viridis. And then down here, you know how in ArcGIS Pro you pick graduated color and then you pick natural breaks or equal interval. So here you pick graduated up top, pick your color ramp, and then here is where you pick equal interval, natural breaks, pretty breaks. So that's a new one. They don't have that in Pro. I'm just going to pick that one just to see what it does. And then I get this one. I think by pretty breaks, what they're doing is taking natural breaks, but picking rounded values so that in your legend it looks nicer. This is not actual population, this is year. Population estimate, I think that's actually the one that we want. Okay. And then I'm going to hit OK. Ooh, oh boy. We might want to normalize some of our data as well, but I'll leave it like this for now. All right, so fun stuff. All the same stuff you can do in Pro. It just looks a little different to get into, but once you're in it, you can see the options are pretty much the same. All right, let's see what was next. We talked about symbology. Are there any other questions on projections? Yeah.
Yeah, I just
struggling to get, I must be clicking a layer wrong, so I can't get the shape to show up, and it's hard just because I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, I will admit, I had trouble with my map as well. When I changed my projection, a couple of times I changed my projection to something that must have been just, I don't know, too wildly different. And my data kind of disappeared on me.
That must be maybe that's what's not.
Yeah, and I don't know, it never did that to me in ArcGIS Pro. And so I am more of a novice at QGIS, I will fully admit that. So I would have to look into why it's doing that. Yeah. But for your final map, it would look so different depending on what projection you pick. Since we will pretend to make a little layout, I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to change it to Equal Earth Americas. You can search for Equal Earth as well if you would like to. Mine, it remembered me playing with it from the other day. But see what it's doing? And I think this might be related to the datum transformation as well. I don't know. Yeah, so ArcGIS Pro handles datum transformations a lot better because now it's getting really, obviously, quite funky. And it's just that one layer. The rest of the map looks okay. So my base map and my point layer looks like it should. And I think it's just because of the datum and native projection of this one layer. So you would have to know what what transformation to use. The transformation is like an added step to projecting your data, and that's where you're adjusting the datum. Do we remember what these things are? Projection, coordinate system, datum. Anyone want to define datum? If I had a prize, I'd give you one. The datum is what we always say is the set of reference points based on an ellipsoid, which is then used to kind of fine tune or make our coordinates more accurate. So we might have a projection that says, no, that the data are stored in UTM zone 13, but the data might be UTM zone 13 NAD 83, UTM zone 13 WGS 84. And the coordinates that we record on a device will actually be different depending on what datum we're using. It's just based on different approximations of the shape of the Earth. And if we measure the Earth a little differently, the coordinates will wind up being a little bit different. But it makes a big difference because then your data might not line up. If you're looking at data at this scale, other than certain layers not drawing in QGIS, the data won't really make too much of a difference. But if you are looking for, I don't know, if you're looking for like a sample site where it's just like some PVC pipe sticking out of the ground that you have to go measure something in, and that's really hard to find, and your datum is off by 50 feet, or your datum is off so your GPS points are off by 50 feet, you're gonna have a hell of a time trying to find your data. So the datum can really matter at larger scales, smaller areas zoomed in. All right, the next thing I wanted to show you in QGIS was how we can get better base maps. So we're actually looking at one already, so let me turn it off. We were looking at Quick Map Services. Do you remember this? We had a plugin. We went to plugins last time. We went to manage and install plugins. And we installed Quick Map Services, a plugin that lets us get to additional base maps. Do you remember this? How many of you are sitting at a machine where it's still installed on QGIS where you are? Okay, if it's not, go do this right now, find it, and then install it. When you do this, by default, you will get a few base maps that are nice, but there's not really a ton of selection. And I knew that there was a way to get more, so I looked it up today because I really want to show you. And let's go back to here. Oh, I didn't put the link in. Darn. Okay. I can get you the link of where I found it. But the thing that you have to do, it's really simple. After you have Quick Map Services installed, there's a little, you actually get a toolbar right here. It's so hard to see, but this one here actually has a drop down little drop-down menu button right there. It's so hard to see. Yours will probably be very short. How many of you see a very short list right here? You'll probably only have 2 or 3. At the very bottom of the list, doesn't matter how long your list is, but at the bottom you'll see settings. So if you go to your Quick Map Services toolbar, go down to settings. There's an option for more services. So click that tab for more services and get contributed pack. It's like a plugin for the plugin where you get more things. And it's worth it to do. It just takes a moment to do. Click on that, it'll run for a second. And then if you go under visibility, you can actually see all the things it just added. How many of you were able to find that button? Okay, did you hit it yet? And did it run? Is it still running for anyone? All right, so after you do that, you can take a quick look at what's there and then hit save. But then what it means is when you're done, oh yeah, Shannon, do you have a question? Oh, there we go. Then what you can do is either from the web menu here, web menu, Quick Map Services, or from the toolbar right here, you can go and pick which base map you want. So I already added, and look, we have all the Esri ones here. Esri, the light and dark gray canvas, ocean, satellite, terrain with labels, topo, a lot of the ones that we're familiar with. Stamen. Stamen has some really nice ones. They're a little more artistic. Some of them are just really basic. If you just want something really simple, I like those ones. Let's put on, I don't know, stamen toner background. I don't actually know what this one looks like. Oh, that was not what I was expecting. So that one's very bright and bold. Before I put in stamen terrain lines, if it will draw. There it goes. I guess there must be some scale in there. So again, really, you can barely see it on screen, but just really simple boundaries and some rivers, like really simple context. I added Esri Gray, the base map. So if we zoom into Colorado, oops, we can see kind of Fort Collins and what we have there. So really basic and very subtle. So if you just need a frame of reference, but you don't really want those streets and rivers to take over your map, something like this is really nice. For the other layers that we're going to add, we're actually going to be looking at northern Colorado, which is actually making me realize now, if you're in your extent map, you might not want to be for the next steps, actually. I'm going to show you how to add some other layers from ArcGIS Online into QGIS, and you probably don't want those all on the same map. So you have 2 choices. Just watch. But I don't recommend that. I think you'll get more out of it if you play along. But I might say, save your extent map and open up a new empty map. While you're doing that and deciding, I'm actually going to fix my projection because now we're all kind of slanted in northern Colorado. Whoops, oh darn it. Oh. One thing I mentioned this already 2 weeks ago, but one thing I like about the projection option in QGIS is when you search for it and pick a projection, it will actually show you the area of the world it's appropriate for. So you're not picking, zone 18 for Colorado. All right, I'm gonna go back to our page. So we looked at this and the steps for this, I can write them out here so that you can see them and have that as a reference if you need to know what I did. What we're gonna do now is how can we add online data to QGIS? So I have a couple of things here. One is an article that I found that was actually really good, how like step-by-step how to do this. So here the basic steps are go somewhere and get the URL of the feature service that you want. And that could be pretty much any feature layer in all of ArcGIS Online. That hundreds of thousands of layers are out there. But there's other places too, like the city of Fort Collins has options as well to get to their data online. So get the URL of the layer that you want to bring in and be aware of what type of layer it is. Is it an ArcGIS feature service? Is it a map service or a data service like GeoJSON just being hosted through a URL? Is it an image service? Is it a map service? There's all these different types of objects out there. And you have to know what type of thing you have because there's different add buttons for each type. We'll do a really simple ArcGIS Online layer first. And we'll go through those steps. But get that URL first. Make sure it's shareable, make sure it's public. Like if it's your own, you want it to be public. Then you go into QGIS and you add an ArcGIS feature server, give it a name, like give the layer a name and paste in the URL. Then you'll hit OK and connect to it. There's a connect button. And then hit add. There's all these little sub steps. But after you do that, then it'll show up in the map. So let's do that. Back to here. Let's all go to ArcGIS Online. And you don't even need to be logged in to do this. So I'll show you. I'm not even going to sign in right now. I'm just going to search for RMNP boundary. And this layer here, which is one that I uploaded, RMNP_boundary, is one that we can use as our first test. If you click on it, here's the item details page. The URL that you need is not this one. This is just the link to the item information. The URL that you need is down here. This is actually the service URL. This is what QGIS needs to add in. So there's a quick copy button. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back to QGIS. And here's where we do the steps that are in that web page. So step number one was get the URL. We did that. Step number two is go up to layer, add layer, and there's all these different types of things we can add. What we want to add is add ArcGIS feature service layer. Does everyone see that one? Okay. So when you do that, it will load this up. And what we want to do is make a new connection. We have the URL. We want to make a new connection where we give the layer a name, RMNP boundary, and just Control V to paste it in, the URL right here. And then you can hit OK. And it shouldn't give you any errors. Oh, I already did this. I'm going to say OK to that. You shouldn't have that. And it looks like nothing happened. But then we have to hit connect. It worked before. All right, did it work for you guys? Did it not work for anyone? Okay. So I'll go through that again. So you grab the URL, go to layer, the layer menu, add layer, add ArcGIS feature service, make a new connection, give it a name and the URL, and then hit connect. After you see it here, then it should let you click add. There's an add button at the bottom, and that will add it to the map. And there it is. Awesome. Now we have a layer in my map coming from ArcGIS Online. And in my case, I have 2 of them. Did that work for everyone? Any questions? Yep, Abdullah.
I couldn't actually find the layer from ArcGIS.
Oh, so we're actually not starting from the Esri webpage. We're starting from arcgis.com.
Okay.
Yeah. So ArcGIS Online, the webpage is arcgis.com. And from here, you hit the little search button over here. And I think if it's actually RMNP_boundary, and so that should get you it right away. All right, that was fun, right? Let's do another layer. So this one, we got the URL straight from arcgis.com. You could search for anything. You could find any layer. Name another layer that might be a public vector layer in arcgis.com. Let's go wild and crazy. We'll wing it here. Miles?
Colorado campsites.
Ooh, Colorado campsites. So here, when you get to ArcGIS Online and do a search, you could potentially get lots of different types of objects that are not vector or feature layers. So it's also a good idea to go over here on the left and filter. So click layers, click feature layers, and it will narrow it down only to these specifically feature layers, which are your hosted vector layers. We have someone from Jeffco Open Space, some campsites there. Campsites for specific parks. Ooh, Rocky Mountain, backcountry campsites. That could be a fun one since we just did the boundary. And this is hosted by Stay Ferny Fern. So each of these layers are uploaded by someone, and that is the username. All of your usernames will be like your EID_CSU RAMs or something. IMRGIS NPS, that's the official National Park Service GIS, I don't know, group or whatever. So anything from these people will be like legit, you know it's legit. If you do see layers that are hosted by someone _CSU RAMs, it very well could be a student in NR493 or NR493, and all y'all took those classes. So how do you feel about how confident are you about your data being out there for other people to use for real applications? Yeah, right. Like a lot of your data may or may not be correct. It may or may not be complete. So anytime you see a username, just think about who that person might be and if it's official or not. All right, so I'm gonna grab this one. And again, I'm gonna grab the URL, go back to QGIS, and we'll try it again. Layer, add feature service layer, make a new one. I'll call it backcountry camping, spell it correctly. I still didn't spell it correctly. Paste in the URL and hit OK. And then what do we do next? I hear everyone shouting. It's so loud, I can't even hear it. It's connect. Very good, yes. And now it gets added into our little list there. And when we hit add, they're there. For anyone who had NR493, we played with this data set at some point, multiple times. Okay, let's take a look at something else. We can also get data from other types of web pages. Let's do a search for the City of Fort Collins downloadable data. If you have this page open, you can jump to it if you like. There's a link right there. But I'm going to just type in City of Fort Collins GIS data. And one of your top results should be free downloadable GIS data, City of Fort Collins. So go to that link. And here, there's all these links where you can just download the data. But the whole point of what I'm showing you right now is so that you don't have to download it. You can use it live from their server. So notice that there's a thing here that says cloud-based open data portal. And that's what we want. The open data portal will list out basically the same layers, but rather than just having a link to download it, it will give us the URL of the map service so that we can add it into QGIS. So same idea. If we wanted Fort Collins rivers hydrology line, for example. I don't know why it makes you do it twice. I feel like there should be a better way. Yeah, okay, hold on. There's a couple ways to get to it, but at the bottom, if you say, I want to use this, click on, I want to use this. And the way we want to use it is through a map service. So we actually want to go here. So just like in ArcGIS Online, where we grab the URL, here's how you can grab the URL. And the top one will grab the URL like a feature service, like we just did. The bottom one is actually grabbing the GeoJSON as a file that's being served over the internet. So we can add this to ArcGIS, but the process is a little bit different. I will show you that process now, just to show you something different. So now I'm going to grab the GeoJSON link. And if we look at it, it's really, really long, but see how it ends in .geojson? It's just a different way to share the data online. I'm going to copy that link and go back to QGIS. Now we want to add a vector layer. So now we can add vector layer, but the vector layer is not sitting on our machine. The vector layer is sitting in the cloud. So what do you think we're going to pick up top here for the source type? Huh?
The last one.
Yeah, the last one, protocol HTTPS cloud. Perfect. And we just paste in that URL again. Great. And then hit add. Oh no, it worked before. Hold on, close. Oh, okay, it gave me an error, but it did actually add it because there it is. So I'm not sure what happened there, but that's how you could do that. So different ways to get data in there depending on how you find it. Miles?
So when you add it through like the web like this, will it change the projection for you, or is that something you have to do after the fact?
So it's projecting on the fly. So QGIS is reading the native projection of the data, which I'm assuming is going to be in Web Mercator. My map is drawing in UTM. So the online layer is stored in Web Mercator. I'm viewing it in UTM, and it lines up where it should because of project on the fly. Okay, yep.
I was having issues finding the ArcGIS feature layer online.
You're having trouble finding it?
Yeah, like from the layer and then add layer.
Yep. So it's way at the bottom, second from the bottom.
Yeah, I don't.
You don't see it?
No.
I wonder if it's a version issue. I have version 3.16.
So mine was the same, and I tried the rest layer, and it did the same thing.
What options
do you have?
The only ArcGIS I have is the breast server layer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I just tried it. It just
Right. That would be my
Okay.
next guess. So by getting this URL for the feature service, what that is a REST endpoint. And I don't know what REST stands for, but REST is like a standard way for sharing data online through these protocols. That would be the equivalent. I think you might have a newer version of QGIS and I do, so that's why. Thanks for pointing that out. All right, the last thing I want to show you is, well, we've been looking at feature data, vector data. What if we wanted to find raster data somewhere? ArcGIS Online has a lot of raster data out there. So let's go back to arcgis.com. It's right here. Let's go back and do another search. There are a lot of different types of layers out there. We're going to just pick one that I know works because I tried several that didn't work, so I don't want to pick randomly for this one. But what we're going to do is look for Big Thompson slope. And it should work. Yeah. So BT Ned slope, kind of a funny name. This guy was a grad student, Luke Chamberlain, and he did all of his work up in the Big Thompson area looking at recreation stuff. But this layer right here it's a tile layer, but it's raster. And there's other ways to store raster as well. There's also imagery layers. I'll show you how to add those, but we'll do this one first. So this is just a raster of slope for the Big Thompson watershed. Again, if you go and click on it, go down to the item details, find the URL of the service and copy it. And then go back into QGIS. And back to add layer. See how there's all these different types of layers that we can add. What we want to add now, I should have written this down. I think it's map service. A lot of them they all kind of blend together. But now that we have this raster tile layer, we want to add an ArcGIS map service layer. Do you have this option? Okay, hold on. Let me see what your options are. Oh, no. Well, try the REST server again, because see how mine has feature service and map service, and you just have REST. REST is more generic, so let's try that one. What I'm going to do, and it should work the same. Do you have the new option? Okay, so it should work the same. Do new, BT slope, paste in the URL, hit OK. I already did it. And then hit connect. So the process should be the same, but now we're adding a different type of object. And so there it is. Did it work for you all? Okay. All right, so this is a raster. It's saved as a tile layer. The steps are a little bit different. I'm not even going to show it on screen because yours is different. But if you take a look at the add, layer, add, what options do you have? Who can show me their menu here? All right, so you have REST server. You have WMS as web mapping service. I think they just combine them. I think REST server would work for any of them. So I would say if you found another type of layer in ArcGIS Online that was designated as an imagery layer, I would use that REST option. If I was in here, I would use image server. So it depends on the type of thing. But that's how you can get all this cool stuff right into QGIS. And then we are just about out of time, but go back over here. I just want to show you, like, hey, if I had these campsites, I'm going to turn this off. It's a bit much. If I had these campsites in my map and I wanted to do analysis with it, I could go up to my vector menu, geoprocessing, buffer. And I could use, what is it called again? Rocky Mountain, here. I could use my backcountry campsite layer coming from online in a buffer tool without having to download it. I'm going to run this. I'm going to buffer each one by a mile, maybe 2 miles. And I'm going to hit run, and there they are. One great thing about QGIS, like it ran before my finger left the mouse button. It was super fast. So there are a lot of advantages to QGIS. Questions about any of that stuff? So back into here. Here's the link to that slope layer. Yeah, the steps are gonna be different for you because you have that different version. Here are a couple of links. So here are the links for how to do it. Here's the link to the Fort Collins data. And we looked at natural earth last week, remember that? This page right here is a list of links to hosted GeoJSON data for most of natural Earth's data. So if you want to get natural Earth data without having to download it and go through that whole thing, here it is. This is a fabulous website. I don't know who made it, but it's great. So like, if I wanted to add rivers for the whole world to my map, they're there. I get a preview, and then here's the URL right here. It ends in .geojson, so I would do the add vector layer, and then use the HTTP option. Okay, questions on that? All right, well, it's 4:50, and I pretty much finished everything I wanted to talk about. I didn't get into layouts. We don't really need that right now. Just so I can show you before we go on our merry ways. From QGIS, you can do new print layout. New print layout, give it a name. And then here's where you would build your layout, change your page size, add all the different elements, the legend, the scale bar, north arrow, the data itself, and that's how you would get started with that. All right, so now hopefully you know enough to do a little bit of QGIS on your own. It may feel really weird, you may fumble through it, I still fumble through it, but the more you use it, the better you'll get at it. Once you leave the cuckold of CSU, your access to ArcGIS Pro will go away. And it's really a good idea to keep your skills up. And QGIS is a great way to keep those skills up and a good thing to add to your resume to show that you are not so tunnel vision and you can do other things too. Any questions? Yeah.
So I have some features that are not appearing on my screen, and one of them is giving me an kind of error sign or something. I'm not really sure about it.
Okay, I can take a look at that in just a second. Any other general questions? Okay, well then we'll wrap it up. See you next week for Megan's talk on sampling and finding sample sites. And how do I get out of here? I don't know how to end. I'm stuck. All right, well, I can't end this in yet. But yeah, and don't forget, if you have not yet turned in your map, your extent, get that in by tonight. All right. And I will figure this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Yeah, I just kept it. Yeah, that's all.
I don't know what's wrong with, I don't see like a stop.
Just have to go forever.
I just have to go forever. What is going on? Why can't I stop it? Very strange. Well, I could just close it all. That'll end it, right? Maybe. All right. Well, I think I ended it. Okay. Okay. So what are you seeing?
So, for example, I want to view this here. It's not appearing here. I'm not really sure why. And here's
So this could be like
available. It says.
before my countries were looking all funky because of the projection. So I wonder if it's kind of the same thing here. I'm going to give a little error right here.
Mhm.
Unavailable layer. Oh, layer source cannot be found. Okay, so let's just see where it's trying to look for it. It's trying to look for it.
It was here first the week I
Was it on the end drive?
Yes, yes, it's there.
Untitled map, untitled. Is this one that came right from KML?
I can have that for you.
I would say, let's just try to add the layer again from where you know it should be. The fact that it says untitled layer makes me think that it's that KML, this bottom one. So I would say go up to your,
See you tomorrow.
here in your like browser, find the folder where everything is being saved.
I think it's 4 to 6. So
And
I'll start
do
working on it. I'll text
try
you,
that one, let's see if that one works.
So we can- maybe I'll kind of
Try the other one
correct through some of it because I got
and double click on it.
kind of busy tomorrow.
Oh,
so
okay.
So I'm not sure what happened to it because it's the same layer
Mm.
as it was before.
Yes,
But no, there it is.
cool.
Go with it.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
I mean, I think really
Um,
it's a little
is
excessive.
this on
This
my
structure,
track?
there's this
I am.
4 to 6 pages per
I'm
document.
sure it's
Somebody
this-
can compare
I don't know why
it. But
Yeah, that's really strange. I would say
I got-
let's try going that school again.
tomorrow
Turn
I
on
actually
page,
have an interview,
Okay.
for a
and
job.
then run down the
So I
geometry
need to,
again.
like, prepare something that- Yeah.
This layer, the
Yeah.
original point.
So,
Most times,
it's for a field hydrologist.
I would say do.
Okay.
Was it the one through handshake? I think I saw one for that through handshake.
No, it wasn't. It was through, one of my coworkers had forwarded it to me.
Try on
It's through like GeoCore and the USDA and stuff. But.
Oh, yeah.
so
Okay.
anyways, all right, well, I'm gonna go start.
Yeah,
working
you
on
add a
that.
dash, and also,
maybe.
this layer,
Have you
the
touched
way you ran it, which is totally.
I'm
different.
gonna
Temporary layer.
look at
So you're
all
gonna need
of
to make sure
them.
you.
I haven't really looked at it that
That's
much.
like, oh,
in
every time
general,
I
so
open
I'm
this,
gonna
it's
really
gone.
just-
I have
That's
to
why.
remerge. Oh,
So,
It's just tough.
the green one is a good one, so
It's like
right
a group
click on the
paper
green one.
too, so it's like, we all
And-
should be like working on it, but it's like
Cancel.
up to, I don't know, we'll
Yeah,
see.
we haven't figured out each other's schedule.
Yeah,
The right, clicking on the map.
yeah,
yeah.
so,
How to like
because we're gonna be talking about it in class tomorrow, so it'd be good to have a
Maybe, like,
idea.
double click.
Yeah.
Is anyone a Mac person? How do you right click? How do you, like, if there's a thing you have to right click on, do you know? How to-
So, all right, well, I'm gonna
Yeah,
start on that. I'll text you guys.
I can go more to depth on the performance ones.
Oh, I think
Started
I just
looking at
saw it.
that one. I
Like,
should
click
have
that.
already notes scribbled down.
Okay.
So,
Sounds good.
thank you. Oh, just one.
Yeah.
One, two, start. Okay,
Okay.
and see how this makes permanent?
Oh,
Any temporary layer needs to be made permanent, because even
Yeah.
if you save the project,
Yeah.
but close it, it'll go away.
that's what's been happening, and I kept, so do I have to save it to the,
I would say save it as a shapefile. It doesn't really matter what shapefile it's second one. Give it a name, make sure it's going into the right folder with the rest of your data.
okay.
So hit browse over here, hit the browse,
All right,
and just make sure it's going to the right place.
thank you. Okay,
But after you get that and symbolize it, I think you're in good shape.
thank you. I was very confused why it kept disappearing on me. I thought,
Yeah.
thank you.
How are you doing, Mario?
Bit better.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to talk about it or?
Let me try one more time on this.
How are you, Miles?
This layer is a little weird.
Um,
I've reprojected it and added it again, but
mine is doing that too, and, I just,
yeah, can I just do
I think just for your own practice, it might be fun, like play around with countries and like different colors and values, just to get the practice, but for the final map.
perfect?
You could also try removing the layer and re-adding it, and take a look at the error messages it gives you about the transformation,
Okay.
and see if a different transformation gets Because that's what the issue is. I just didn't take the time to actually.
Yeah. That's, yeah.
But it's probably best, to learn how to do that.
Okay, so I am trying to clip these rasters to this boundary. And at first I have to go and change the projection of the rasters to the projection that I have this layer on.
Yeah.
So I did that using project rasters. And then I went and used clip raster, but it's not clipping everything exactly, right?
So a raster is always going to be rectangular, no matter what. What you want to do is flip the raster and use the geometry of this boundary and basically turn these little rectangles. So I'll open this tool. And then start to fill it out and you'll see something. So what it's doing without checking that box is just using the extent. So see how it's lined up with the and you want to use the geometry of it. And then run that. And I'll show you what's actually happening. Because your raster always has to be a rectangle. So think about, have you ever taken a photo and rotated it and then you get funny triangles? Same thing. But when you look at the picture, you don't see the triangles. You hide the black in the corner. So that's what you're going to have to do here. Once it does run, by default, it won't draw those no data slivers on the edges here, but they are actually part of the raster, but they'll just be no data stubs. And if you want to prove to yourself that they're actually there, you can look at that. So turn. No, that's fine. I would say go double click. I'm sorry, not double click. I'm not right click. Right click on that layer. Go to symbology. So even though the data is only for right here, go over to mask and make no data be like red. That's actually the extent of the data.
Okay.
But because you only have real values for this area here, the no data is there to maintain the rectangle, but you'll never look at it, you'll never see it unless you want to. It will be ignored in all processing. That's what's really happening. So do the other ones and you'll see, it'll do the same thing. Oh yeah, very cool. Nice.
Took me a while to figure out how to select my attributes. And
Yes.
I had to Google that one.
Yeah. It's not that it's hard, it's just.
Yeah, it is a little different.
I would say if you wanted to throw it into a layout, so you can put a title on it, or
How do you format what's inside my, like?
here's where I'll have to wing it because I haven't done the actual layout in here.
Not looks like.
I think that's it.
I want to use Zoom.
Oh, go back here. So try the shift. Try shift and draw a box.
Yeah, I'll play with this one. Thank you.
I think that's
I figured out the labeling.
Nice.
Do I have to do the saving that as a permanent layer as well for labeling, or is that like?
The label should be a property of the layer.
Okay,
And so
cool.
that should be.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
And then see how you have hover your mouse over those little icons. See, that's temporary. So those 3 are temporary.
Okay,
And even if your project is saved, if you close it, they'll go away.
gotcha. I was wondering what that was. Cool, thank you.
Alright, so how do I, so I got the places selected, how do I turn it into a new thing?
Polygon.
Yes.
Yeah. I could tell you, but I also want to show you that it's in the little left handout.
It
You
is.
have that handy.
So. Oh, yeah, I got this PDF.
We'll PDF of the general steps. It's not like everything. We'll go down a couple pages. Symbolize, go down one more. And protect the points. One more. Okay, wait, it's a very short step. Just right here.
Yeah.
All right, I have to head out.